The science fiction author Arthur C. Clarke once wrote that any sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic. These technologies are commonplace to us, but even in our very modern world there are still a small number of remote tribes living a way of life largely unchanged for thousands of years. Some of these tribes are so isolated that we know very little about them. Others are classified as uncontacted. This does not necessarily mean they are entirely unaware of or have never encountered anybody from the outside world. All too often they are painfully aware of our existence, as their territory is invaded and their people murdered. The uncontacted tag simply means that they have no ongoing peaceful contact with the outside world. In the video, let's take a closer look at the dwindling number of 5 most isolated and uncontacted tribes that still cling to existence in what is all too often a hostile world. At number 5, we have the Dani tribe, spanning 309,000 square miles. The island of New Guinea is the second largest island in the world. It had been discovered by Portuguese explorers in 1527, but deep in the heart of its forested interior the Dani people had lived almost entirely undetected for centuries. That was until they were spotted by an eagle-eyed anthropologist named Richard Archbold as he flew overhead in 1938. The Dani people's way of life was based around farming, hunting and gathering. Their tools were created from wood, stone, and bone, and each of the men wore little more than a penis gourd. Women did most of the work, such as tending crops and looking after the children, and pigs were the measure by which a man's wealth was measured. When Richard Archbold published his account of the Dani people, and what he described as their paradise on earth, it caused something of a sensation. Perhaps fortunately for the Dani people, the rest of the world would be distracted by World War II for the next several years, and they were left to their own devices for a little longer. However, hostilities eventually came to an end and the mysterious tribe in New Guinea had not been forgotten. Missionaries descended on the island, all of them intent on civilizing and converting the Dani people. These once isolated people have now become something of a tourist attraction. However, even now there are a handful of scattered villages where life goes on for the Dani people almost entirely untouched by the outside world. Their numbers are dwindling rapidly as their young people increasingly abandon the old way of life, and it remains to be seen how far into the 21st century their traditions can survive. At number 4, we have the Qurubo tribe. Sidney Possuelo is a Brazilian explorer who has probably done more than anybody else in history to discover and protect South America's most isolated tribes. He has devoted his life to fighting for the rights of indigenous peoples, and he is rightly considered the world's leading expert on remote Indian tribes. Making first contact can be potentially dangerous, and this was certainly the case in 1996 when he led an expedition in search of the Qurubo tribe. Like many other Amazonian tribes, the Qurubo are suspicious of outsiders. Many of them had been killed in clashes with ranchers, loggers, and other settlers. However, the Qurubo tribe, also known as the Club people in recognition of their favored weapon, fought back fiercely and had themselves killed many outsiders who trespassed on their territory. Possuelo approached with caution, easing himself in gently by leaving gifts such as axes and knives for the Qurubo tribe to find. This softly approach proved successful, and Possuelo succeeded in convincing the tribe that he posed no threat. The tribe remained extremely isolated and rightfully suspicious of outsiders. What little we do know of them is largely thanks to Sidney Possuelo. At number 3, we have the Aoreo Totobayagasode. Across the globe, something in the region of 31,000 square miles of forest is destroyed every year. This works out to an area roughly the size of Austria. Nowhere is this deforestation happening faster than in Paraguay's Gran Chaco forest, where up to 14 million trees are cut down every month. This rapidly diminishing ecosystem is home to South America's last uncontacted tribe outside of the Amazon basin. The Aoreo people are made up of numerous subgroups, the most isolated of these being the Totobayagasode, which translates as the people from the land of the wild pigs. For generations the Totobayagasode have lived off the forest, cultivating a few crops and hunting tortoises and boar. However, the destructive forces of civilization are drawing ever closer. hemmed in on all sides, with their ancestral lands being bulldozed to make way for cattle ranches and soy plantations. Some Totoba-Yagasode have emerged from the forest to ask for help. Others have been kidnapped and forced into slavery. As the outside world closes in, it brings diseases to which the tribe have no built-up immunity. In recent years, a tuberculosis epidemic has cut swaths through the community and cost many lives. Nobody can be certain how many of the Totoba-Yagasode still survive in the depths of Gran Chaco Forest or what the future holds for them. However, there was some good news in 1996 when the Ayoreo people were granted the land rights to 100,000 hectares of the Gran Chaco Forest. However, they believe this is less than half what may be needed to ensure the survival of their most isolated kin in the forest. The struggle for land continues, and after a hard-fought, protracted battle, the legal rights to another 18,000 hectares was secured from the government in 2019. At number 2, the Yanomami tribe. The Yanomami tribe are another of the isolated tribes that call the Amazon rainforest home. However, their culture is rather different to most of the others. This is most apparent in that they don't have any leaders. Rather than take orders from a chief, the tribe get together to discuss any important decisions that might need to be made. The outcome is only decided when group consensus is reached. Around 20% of the Yanomami tribe's diet is made up of the monkeys, birds, armadillo, and deer they hunt with bows and arrows. However, the hunter himself will never eat anything he has personally caught. It is instead shared out amongst others. While the hunting is done almost exclusively by the men, the women use their extensive knowledge of the forest to gather berries and edible insects. It is believed that they regularly make use of more than 500 different types of plants with which to provide medicine, body paints, dyes, poisons, and even hallucinogenic drugs. In keeping with a hunter-gatherer lifestyle, a typical working day of just 4 hours is enough to provide the Yanomami with everything they need to survive and thrive. So far, the Yanomami have fared better than many of South America's isolated tribes, and it is believed there are still around 35,000 of them living in up to 250 scattered villages across Brazil and Venezuela. Finally, at number 1, we have the Sentinelese tribe. North Sentinel Island is a scrap of land covering barely more than 23 square miles. It can be found in the Bay of Bengal, just a few hundred miles from India, the world's second most heavily populated country. Despite this, North Sentinel Island is one of the most remote and mysterious places on the planet. Only a handful of outsiders have ever set foot on the island, and even fewer have made it off alive. It is home to the Sentinelese tribe, arguably the most isolated tribe of anywhere on Earth, and somewhat paradoxically also one of the most famous. Very little is known of the Sentinelese people. We don't even have any clear idea of how many of them there are, with estimates ranging between anything from 15 to 500 individuals. Their island home is under the protection of the Indian government, which periodically attempts to take a census from the air. This is all that can be attempted. The Indian authorities have made it illegal to set foot on the island without permission, and permission to visit is almost never granted. The law is designed not just to protect the islanders, who have no natural immunity to many common diseases, but also for the safety of any prospective explorers. The Sentinelese have shown little desire to interact with the wider world. They are skilled archers, and when they feel threatened they are prepared to defend themselves with force. In 2018, this remote tribe became headline news across the world. An American missionary named John Cho paid local fishermen to illegally transport him to the island, where he intended to convert the locals to Christianity. While there is no question that his actions were well-intentioned, he placed both himself and the Sentinelese people in terrible danger. Cho's diary entry records that he offered gifts, only for a young boy to fire an arrow that struck his waterproof Bible. The young American retreated but unfortunately failed to heed what was a very clear warning. His diary records that he determined to make another attempt to approach the Sentinelese people. Sadly, his determination cost him his life. The Indian authorities concluded it would be too risky to attempt to recover his body. Thank you so much for watching the video. See you all in the next video. Till then, take care, stay safe, And don't forget to subscribe the channel for more interesting videos.